Hi, everybody. Welcome to our three reps at 11 this morning. And we have Ty Wilson and Andrea Tetrick from Three Rivers and PGW, and Patricia Nelson from Princeton and Yale University Presses. And I'm going to turn it over to Ty and Andrea to start the show.
Thanks, Ann. Hi, everybody. I am the Northern California rep for PGW and Two Rivers. Andrea, AT, my partner is down in Southern California. She covers that area. We're gonna, by the way, I just want to start first by saying that if there's anything that seems mildly intriguing here, we have ARCs that we can send you or finished copies. And I think our email addresses are going to be provided. So if there's anything of interest, please don't hesitate to contact us. We're going to start first, actually, with three titles that are being offered in signed cartons. And the first, these are both on the spring list and on the fall list. But orders for these are being taken now on a first come, first served basis. And they have to be submitted through AT or through Andrea or myself. So the first is Vesper Flights. You'll recognize Helen McDonald. This is a collection of essays that is essentially a cabinet of wonders. It's really not to be underestimated, even though it is not a single subject book. She can talk about staplers and make it sound interesting. Here she will take an encounter with a wild boar in England and explore extinct species in that country. And she'll look at her field guide, and suddenly we'll be looking at the history of field guides globally. Fascinating. Starred book list. This is a title that was on the spring list, but it's been pushed back and is now shipping in late August. There's a maximum of 2 cartons per ship to on Vesper Flights. And then Lost Spells is actually on the fall list. But again, this is going to be kind of a hot title. Robert McFarlane and Jackie Morris, the illustrator, are only signing 2,000 of these, and 1,000 have already been claimed. So this is the follow-up to 2018's Lost Worlds, which is a big, whopping 10 by 14 collection of poems, stunningly illustrated by Morris, about the disappearing language of the natural world. But this is a very different species. Lost Spells is almost mass size. It's 4.5 by 6.5, so a great stocking stuffer. This is coming in late October, so one to really be aggressive on with your initials. Again, this is a 12-copy signed carton. And yeah, a maximum order of 2 again for this. And then the next title was added recently to the signed list. This is Awkward Black Man by Walter Mosley, a collection of literary short stories. So these are none of the Leonid McGill or Easy Rollins stories. These are pieces from the New Yorker and the Atlantic. Terrific, quirky stories. But this is a 10-copy signed carton available now. I mean, it's a fall title, but it's available to order now. And then we move on to 2 titles that were both indies introduced and our July Indie Next picks. Crooked Hallelujah is terrific. This is a debut novel by a Cherokee writer about 4 generations of Cherokee women, starting in 1974 in Oklahoma. And each of them are trying to forge a better, safer life for her daughter. And the writing is absolutely crystalline, deeply sympathetic characters. This is starred PW and book list. And there is going to be an NPR, it's going to be featured on NPR Weekend Edition on July 26th.
I'm going to talk about Freshwater for Flowers. This is an Indie Next pick here in the States and a runaway feel-good #1 bestseller in France, syncopated by both absurd and emotionally charged moments and quirky, unforgettable characters. It's set in a cemetery in the Burgundy subregion, and it's just a wonderful meditation on life, death, and the vagaries of love. A real winner. I dipped into this early in the selling season during the spring, and just to get a feel for the writing, and it was going to move on to the copious other titles that I needed to talk about with booksellers, but I couldn't put it down. It's charming and so beautifully written, and just a real winner. And we're ready to move on to the next slide. And that would be Shadow Play and the Lying Life of Adults. To my mind, Shadow Play is the most promising novel Europa Editions has brought us in their 2+ years with PGW. It's a beautifully wrought and atmospheric historical novel tracing the intermingled passions and complex interiority of 3 real-life 19th century artists, 2 from the stage, Henry Irving and Ellen Terry, and one of literary bent, the famous Bram Stoker. This is just a stunning read. It's gotten great reviews and a lot of fine endorsements from booksellers. The 2 latest reviews appeared in the New York Times and the Washington Post. It's just there's also an immersive portrayal of theatrical life in late Victorian London, which is just a delight, and it's just a compelling and addictive romp, and something that I hope that you all can hand sell in a fierce manner. Ty, do you want to talk about The Lying Life of Adults?
Yeah, I think this is kind of an unknown quantity because it was sold on the spring list, but this is one of those titles because of COVID has been pushed back, is now shipping September 1st. It's a strict laydown. This is not an extension of the Neapolitan Quartet, but it is set in Naples. A young girl grows up believing that she comes from upper Naples, the higher society, and finds out when she's 15 that is actually not the case, that her family is of low birth, and it's her reconciling herself with that class, the class difference that composes this novel. Great reviews, both in Italy and France. In France, they were having midnight releases and reading parties in the wee hours. This, like the quartet, this has been optioned for a series. Netflix is going to be doing this. Galleys were very rare. There may be some in Berkeley, but Berkeley's closed. Our Berkeley office is closed right now. So if you'd like a finished when it comes out, we'll be happy to send those to you. And then on the next slide, we have 2 family memoirs tied to transformative, larger American historical tragedies. The Yellow House, won the National Book Award, now out in paperback in a great new stunning jacket. And that was just released. There's no strict laydown on this in paperback. So you can put it out as soon as you get it. It should be available now in Roseburg.
Yeah, it's so nice that the love for these 2 books span from literary award committees to the commercial, as Yellow House, of course, won the National Book Award. And What We Inherit was recently named an Oprah Summer Reads pick. What We Inherit, by the way, comes to us by way of the small Southern California press. They're not already on your radar. This indie publisher is definitely one to watch. So anytime you see that imprint, definitely take note. And we're on to the next slide. And that's Wicked Enchantment and the Committed. Finally, a collection of poetry from the magisterial Wanda Coleman, who deserves her time in the sun, even though she has left the planet at this point, sadly. There's a fabulous introduction by rising star Terrence Hayes to position this volume quite firmly in the center of contemporary American poetry. It's just exciting to see this book in print and published by the venerable Black Sparrow Press that has recently been rejuvenated as an imprint of David R. Godine. And really the time has never been better for a reappraisal of a woman considered to be the unofficial poet laureate of LA. And there's about 130 poems here that span Coleman's just amazing 4-decade career, and Terrence Hayes also selects those. So it's a great collection. And Ty, if you want to speak a little bit about.
We just wanted to tease Viet Thanh Nguyen's sequel to The Sympathizer is coming out in March 21. We know it's way early, but we were so excited because we did receive 30 bound pages of manuscript, the first 30, set in Paris, with the same character trying to make his way in the world. Very promising, but we just wanted to tease that. It's it'll have a strict laydown of March 2nd.
Yeah, I got to jump in with a 2-minute warning, but I also have to say that we hosted Viet in Southern California at our spring workshop down there, and he's incredible. He's an incredible speaker, and it's going to be an amazing book.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah, there is no sophomore slump there for sure. And he's everywhere right now. I think there's going to be, he's generating his own publicity, but the strength of his writing is going to sell this book for you as well. He's got a great Twitter presence and is doing a lot of op-eds. So we're happy to see that. Now, if we could just switch over to, the two, I just wanted to close out with these two visually driven titles from IPS, the IPS distribution line that I also represent. Ty doesn't, but I'm dealing with those folks as well. The first is from German publisher Gestalten, and definitely a perfect indie title. Do You Read Me? Bookstores around the world. And this is just a stunning gift book that really should be in every indie bookstore in the land. And it's $60. And I do think that even though this is a spring title, that it's something to hold on to for the holidays. This is going to be a perennial, an evergreen, as we like to say. And then the second title is Poems to See By, from Plow Publishing, a small publisher from IPS. A comic artist interprets great poetry, and the artist is Julian Peters. Each piece of art to accompany a poems he's selected come in different styles, so it's really nice. The visual interpretations are quite lovely. And the poets in this volume include W.H. Auden, E.E. Cummings, Emily Dickinson, Langston Hughes, and St. Vincent Millay, Poe, Wordsworth, Yeats, Thomas, Sandburg, Christina Rossetti. So it's just a great, solid collection, and just a great introduction, I think, with the comic interpretations. And this is suitable for, I would say, 11, 12-year-olds up to 112. So, and that's it. I think we've finished up.
While Valentine is in that collection, if you could scroll back up to the poetry book with the beautiful illustrations, because there was a question about what that book was, and they're all the way up to the top, Valentina. The Lost Spells. If you can click on and the next one, that this is a book of poetry, beautifully illustrated, and does have some crossover potential for kids, for the children's market.
Right. And the companion volume to this that was published a couple of years ago now, like there was definitely crossover potential, as this was the first book, Lost Words, was written and illustrated in response to the Oxford Children's Dictionary beginning to excise words from nature, such as raven and fern, etc., which is it's highly disturbing. So this is a continuation of this project, just as stunning. And a lot of booksellers did really well with that one, and we think that this will have the same sort of play in the indie market.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? You want to put them in the chat, or you have their email addresses. We'll also post the links to their Edelweiss collection in the chat for you. And I think we'll turn it over to Patricia. You need to unmute. There you go.
Okay. I'm on speaker view. I don't know if I have full screen here, which we'll need for seeing the books. I guess that will work out. Okay, it's so wonderful to see you, and thank you, Anne and Calvin. It's good to be with booksellers. It's very strange to be far away. I'm going to go through my books first from Yale, and with our current bestseller, They Were Her Property, White Women as Slave Owners in the American South. This is by Stephanie E. Jones-Rogers. It just won the Los Angeles Times Book Prize in History last month. Incredible reviews, compelling, stunning. It dissects the ways that white women were active participants in the American system of slavery. It just got a Los Angeles Review of Books terrific review, uncovering hidden relationships among gender, slavery, and capitalism. And I think most piercingly shows how intimate this involvement with consumerism really was, with slaves as dowry, as a personal property, the strongest form of capital that women had. This is out in paper. It's gone through about 5 reprints recently. I think it's in stock now. I want to show you Blooming Flowers. This is just the loveliest book. It is new from Yale's London offices and has that British impeccable look. You can see the inside end papers, and all through it's just incredibly full of lovely images from, a lotus flower in Buddhism, the sunflower. It's going to cover things like the poppy in World War I, sunflowers at Chernobyl or the German Green Party, the mafia and chrysanthemums, violets and Sigmund Freud. What struck me reading this book initially and surprisingly was the lovely attention to Black lives and culture throughout. I opened to find Alice Walker's Revolutionary Petunias, Jamaica Kincaid wandering in the gardens at Kew, seeing cotton flowers that would affect plantation botany. She brings up Harriet Beecher Stowe's use of voluptuous flowers to symbolize the slave owner in New Orleans, contrasted with the bright annual cottage garden of Uncle Tom and his cabin garden patch. She looks at a British colonial education, like you might imagine in the Caribbean and Trinidad or Antigua. Writers like Derek Walcott or V.S. Naipaul, who tolerated an education saturated with daffodils and Wordsworth, although that was not their season or their culture. What I really love in this book is in the back. It has this fantastic bibliography called Literary Seeds and Sources. This goes on for pages and pages. So if you like to wander in an overgrown bibliography like I do, this book is perfect for the armchair gardener, the botanical browser. Also from Yale, flying out the door, of course, published just in time. Last year, before the pandemic, we published Epidemics and Society, From the Black Death to the Present. It's an enormous book. We dropped it in as a paperback in April, and again, have gone through a number of printings. It's been hard to keep this in stock. I can't comment strongly enough about what a great read it is. This really is in the company of Barbara Tuchman. You might read the chapter on Napoleon and typhus and the decimated armies leaving Moscow, or the Haitian Revolution and yellow fever. Attention has been enormous. NPR, CNN, PBS, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. It's a great book and selling well. We have a book coming out from Yale very soon, shipping July 6th, at the top of our fall list, The Virus in the Age of Madness by Bernard Henry Levy. And this is a very French look at the pandemic and its own viral hysteria in the way that we perceive things and debate. It brings, of course, a little Lacan and Foucault into the story. It talks about how we sentimentalize quarantine. I thought it was funny that his example was paper mache models of the Notre Dame, comparing that to our own amusements. But I think above all, he chastises us for our eclipse of attention to the many other issues in the world, a famine, migrants, Islamic State's murder in Mozambique, cutting of water supplies to Syria, the fate of the Uyghur under China and of Hong Kong. It's very French, excitable, $14, paperback, and releases on July 6th. And finally from Yale, also shipping early in the fall season, a new Luigi Pirandello, Stories for the Years. So if you do have that reader for Elena Ferrante, for Natalie Ginsburg, for Calvino, I myself have always had a taste for pre-war and post-war Italian stories. There are 30 arranged around the year in a Sicily that is quite bitter, at traditional and at odds with the new modernism in Rome. Wonderful characters and crisp and really addictive stories. And looking now at Princeton, we have a couple of books for the West. Deportation Machine is one that got off a little late due to some bindery issues, but then got a front page New York Times book review. Adam Goodman's book on America's long history of expelling immigrants. Very strong book if you are nurturing a border studies, immigration, deportation, a section, as many in the West are doing. You know Greg Grandin, who won the Pulitzer for End of Myth. He says this really shows a machine that is fed by toxic racist ideology, vigilante impunity, and bureaucratic momentum. I highly recommend it. A great book to have on our list. Another book that was a little bit short-circuited for an author tour by the pandemic, Billionaire Wilderness. Justin Farrell is a native son of Wyoming, now a Yale sociology professor, who returns to Teton County, Wyoming, unexpectedly the wealthiest county in America. The ultra-billionaires are attracted to the wilderness by a tax incentive, no personal or corporate income tax, and have extremely disrupted the equilibrium of real estate and all cost of living there. He interviews both the very wealthy and the poor in paired, experiential, and very smart and even snide ways for the rich who are somewhat oblivious of their acceptance in their Wrangler genes by less wealthy people. He's particularly good about gilded philanthropy and trivial charity. He's had a lot of publicity, and he wrote extremely well in the New York Times on the coronavirus and the pandemic as the private jets arrived in Wyoming with their own ventilators. My personal favorite from Princeton for the quarantine is Zena Hitz's book, Lost in Thought, The Hidden Pleasures of the Intellectual Life. I just delight in this book. It is kind of inspirational about the value of our own pilgrimage of reading, about what we might use a forced solitude to accomplish as we read our way into greatness. She's written quite beautifully recently on Gramsci and Malcolm X and their prison reading. She's from St. John's College, Annapolis, as you might imagine, and she just brings a wonderful tone. We just shipped this book. The Worlds of J.R.R. Tolkien is now out, a beautiful gift book on the places that inspired Middle Earth. It's by John Garth. This book looks at the real places that Tolkien investigated, mountains of Switzerland that might have inspired Rivendell. Beautiful, beautiful illustrations throughout. Looks at where the ideas for Hobbiton came from. It's for the Tolkien lover, but also for the lover of travel and landscape and literary landscape and the underpinnings of a great fantasy story being, in fact, real places. From the fall list for Princeton, but out, I think, by August 1st, shipping, I think, maybe late July, and already praised in the Atlantic and in Publishers Weekly, is a new book on Seamus Heaney. It's hard to get enough of the great poet, and we have a truly terrific author, R.F. Foster, writing on Seamus Heaney, so one to watch out for. And I'll finish with a moment for us. It's not often that a university press shows up in Publishers Weekly's book deals of the week, but in fact, Princeton University Press did prevail in a 10-way auction for Maisha Cherry's new book, The Failures of Forgiveness, an extraordinary young Black woman philosopher on forgiveness. It's a very rich and tantalizing expectation. It's way out there, maybe 18 months, but everything in our industry is about what's over the horizon, and I'm really glad that this one is on its way. Thank you.
Patricia often reminds us that, and it's true of Ty and Andrea's lines as well, of these small presses and university presses are just treasure troves for the topical and timely books that sometimes you don't necessarily have at your fingertips, but should. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Do you want to talk any more about that? I mean, because you've said it so well before.
Well, certainly, I think that a university press can often be surprising. I often delve into many other university presses. I find them intoxicating. I think that we are frequently drawn by current events, by topics of our times, to hard issues or unexpected issues that we want to frame differently. We want to look at deportation. We want to look at anti-racism. We want to look at slave capitalism or racist capitalism. New terms come into our minds. How can we bring that forward? And many booksellers have created micro categories to capture this. I found that University Press often feeds those, and that's because there's almost a kind of seismic quality about academia that is out in front of you, already aware of emerging issues and shaping them. I read a lot of categories in a lot of stores. Regionalism is another place where University Press can surprise you in its depth of interest, since instead of being all focused, for example, maybe in New York, a big house publishing, we have hundreds of university presses spread out across America, and their mission is often their place. Another nice aspect of that is reading a place that is not your own. So for all those reasons, I find it exciting.